Welcome to The Source, where we could buy the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. Sitting in for Pinky Webb, I'm Ria Tanwat-Cotrillo. Today on the program, senators inspect the air traffic management system as it probes the airspace shutdown incident last New Year's Day. Senators and the Defense Department back the return of Reserve Officers Training Corps. And the Philippine government is set to put up more overseas offices to screen OFW employers to protect Filipino workers from trafficking. Deputy State Minority Leader Risa Hontiveros joins us on the show. We begin with this story. The death toll across Turkey and Syria quickly rising. It is now at over 3,800 after the magnitude 7.8 earthquake early Monday. Powerful tremors brought thousands of buildings crashing down in both countries, leaving many victims trapped under the rubble. The quake hit Turkey at 4 a.m. on Monday while many people were still asleep. In Turkey alone, disaster officials say at least 5,600 buildings collapsed during and after the earthquake. Around 15,000 are injured in both countries based on information coming in from various agencies. The United States Geological Survey has recorded at least 77 aftershocks measuring magnitude 4 or greater. 3 of the aftershocks were stronger than magnitude 6, including a 7.5 that struck just 59 miles north of the epicenter of the main quake. The Turkish president has declared 7 days of national mourning. The United Nations says it's ready to support emergency response efforts in Turkey and Syria following the quake.
I extend my condolences to the families of the victims. The United Nations is mobilizing to support the emergency response, and so let's work together in solidarity to assist all those hit by this disaster, many of whom were already in dire need of humanitarian aid.
Conditions in the northwest of Syria are terrifying as eyewitnesses describe how it left entire families dead and survivors sleeping on the streets in the freezing cold. While Turkey is used to seismic activity and has prepared for small quakes, it's a different story in Syria. Hospitals are starting to suffer from power outages and manpower is not enough to deal with all the wounded. CNN's Isabel Rosales has more on the devastating aftermath.
From under the dust and rubble, a small hand reaches out. Volunteer white helmet rescuers pulling out a Syrian boy from the debris, alive. But their frantic search for life is not enough.
We need help, we need support, immediate support from anyone who can support us.
The catastrophic 7.8 magnitude earthquake collapsing buildings as people slept in bed. The U.S. Geological Survey predicts the death toll could rise by the thousands based on the location of the quake in Turkey and Syria. It's one of the strongest to hit the region since 1939.
We're not ready to deal with something like this. It's bigger than us and bigger than any NGO operating in northwest Syria to handle this disaster.
Survivors unable to go home, taking shelter wherever they can find, even in cars.
If you want to say hello to my kids.
But strong aftershocks complicating the search for those trapped, the biggest of them measuring a powerful 7.5 magnitude. International help is on the way. Several countries are donating money, equipment, and manpower as rescuers dig for any signs of life. I'm Isabel Rosales reporting.
No casualties involving Filipinos have been reported in the devastating quake so far. In an interview on CNN Philippines, Philippine Ambassador to Turkey, Maria Elena Algabre, said that the home of some Filipinos in Gaziantep, the quake's epicenter, were damaged by extreme tremors.
Of course, yung iba po lumipat po ng building, kamukha po doon sa Gaziantep. Hindi po nasira ang building, kaya lang po sira lahat sa bahay nila. Natatakot sila dahil medyo luma na rin yung building. So lumipat sila ng building.
Meanwhile, a Filipino resident in Antalya shared the experience of their relatives in a neighboring city greatly damaged by the quake. The migrant worker said they have yet to receive news about their family's situation.
Nabagsak yung building nila and they are under the debris now. And wala kaming balita sa kanila. Wala ding pumunta dun sa lugar na yun na rescue team.
There are more than 4,000 Filipinos in Turkey, while over 1,000 reside in Syria. In other news, the interagency investigation team looking into the air traffic management system failure that crippled Philippine airports on New Year's Day. It targets to submit its findings to the Senate in February. The Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines, which handles the air traffic management, has inhibited from participating in the conduct of the investigation. Let's go straight to the source of the story. Deputy Senate Minority Leader Risa Hontiveros. Senator, good morning. Thank you for being here. Senator, are you there?
For inviting me.
All right.
Yes, I'm here.
Now, Senator, you joined fellow senators in inspecting air traffic management, the air traffic management system of the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines, or CAAP. After that visit, what is your assessment so far? Do you feel that you have a better picture now on what brought about the air traffic glitch on New Year's Day?
I guess, Ria, we have a better physical picture of not exactly what happened, but the scene of the, not the scene of the crime, but the scene of the incident on January 1. We were able to put visuals to what we had heard from CAAP and the other resource persons during the hearing. Pero syempre dyan, sa pag-inspect namin sa CAAP premises, sa iba't ibang equipment nila, what we saw was the hardware. We couldn't actually restage what happened with the software in the CAAP equipment or hardware last January 1. Hindi rin namin makita with our own eyes the history of maintenance or lack of it, of the systems, which may have been a factor in that meltdown at NAIA on New Year's Day. So I guess the most important missing pieces still of this puzzle will come in with the completion of the interagency investigation of the DOTR and DICT, which they will submit to our committee chaired by Sen. Grace by the middle of this month. At pagkatapos nun, yung buong letrato na, yung buong puzzle na, hari nawa ay mabuo namin sa committee report na ilalabas.
So, do you think this is negligence, Senator?
Well, that's certainly one important angle still being investigated by that interagency group. May negligence nga ba? Meron bang even criminal intent nga ba that would have come into play sa nangyaring malaki at seryosong insidenteng ito affecting about 65,000 passengers on that day. Imposible namang na mere technical glitch ito. No, it seems to be, even to a layperson like me na hindi eksperto sa mga aviation matters, it seems to be something bigger and more serious than a mere technical glitch. At kung nga ma-establish ng investigation at ng aming committee inquiry yung aspetong iyon ng negligence or even criminal intent, then hindi na rin sasapat yung compensation na ibinigay ng mga airlines sa mga pasahero nila. Then the question will become live of whether or not there should also be compensation dun sa mga naperwisyong pasahero mula sa gobyerno.
So, Senator, which individuals would be answerable to this if charges are ever filed?
Well, depending on the results of the interagency investigation and the results of our committee investigation, we would have to look at the responsible government agencies. CAAP ba ito? DOTR ba ito? DICT ba ito? Sino mga individual sa loob ng mga ahensyang iyon, starting with the CAAP?
All right. And at this point, ma'am, what do you think can still be done to prevent something similar from happening? I mean, you said it's not a mere glitch, but from what we know and what we've learned, how do we make sure this doesn't happen again?
Well, I think in the press con immediately after our inspection of the CAAP premises, tinukoy na ni Chair Grace yung isa sa pinaka-importanting pwedeng gawin, which is for the Senate, Congress as a whole, to hear and pass the bill seeking to establish if I remember the title correctly, a National Air Transport Safety Board or something like that, a national agency fully mandated and empowered to ensure the safety of our passengers, of our airline crews, by making sure that there is a dependable and up-to-date and well-maintained air traffic management system here on the ground.
Well, speaking of that maintenance, of course, it was mentioned previously that some equipment was outdated or possibly not maintained. What about the need for more funds? Is it urgent now to buy new air traffic management equipment?
Well, it seems that CAAP is starting to look into those purchases and that upgrading. In-express na rin ni Chair Grace para sa aming lahat that the Senate, Congress stands ready to appropriate the proper line items in the annual budgets or GAAs. But we have to also be sure na CAAP is up to speed and is fully accountable. Well, will make itself accountable for any wrongdoings or inadequacies in the past at na sila ay magiging handa na gamitin, i-optimize, i-maximize itong budget na taon-taon inilalaan ng Kongreso ng ating Republika to make sure that not only no more such New Year's Day incidents or meltdowns take place, but that our air transport authorities will really step up to provide up-to-date global standards of safety and management for air travel in the Philippines.
Right, and it couldn't have happened at a worse time, New Year's Day.
Right. Exactly. Imagine all the family reunions that were disrupted, the work schedules and responsibilities that were disrupted, pati at lalo na para sa ating mga OFWs. Really, one of the worst incidents that could have happened on the very first day of the new year.
All right, Senator, speaking of OFWs, I want to talk about the slain OFW from Kuwait, Julie B. Ranara.
Yes.
She was laid to rest over the weekend, as you know, and even before that happened, there was another case of a Filipina who was injured in her efforts to escape her employers in Kuwait as well. What is this telling us about the state or the working conditions for OFWs there, and how concerning is it?
Very concerning, Ria. As you correctly recalled, we are talking not only here about the most recent kababayan, kabaro pa natin, who was victimized by these inhumane and violent working conditions. Julie B. Ranara, who was allegedly killed by the 17-year-old son of her employer. Her burnt body found in the desert on January 21. Of course, the Kuwaiti government officials vowed to Julabi's family and to Migrant Worker Secretary Ople that justice would be served. Before Julabi, aside from the injured kabaro of ours, Ria, there were also the cases of Joanna Dimafiles, who was also killed, Constancia Lago Dayag, who was declared dead on arrival at the Al Sabah Hospital in Kuwait, and Gina Lynn Villavende, who was also dead on arrival at the hospital and whose nurses reported that she was black and blue. So ibig sabihin, Ria, that labor migration, of course, continues to be a major element of our labor and foreign relations policies and programs. but also that we need to step up in terms of providing more enough decent jobs and livelihood here in the Philippines para yung pangingibang bayan natin para sa pagtrabaho ay hindi lang solong o pinaka mabuting option. There are enough good options to choose from also here at home. At kapag naman pinili talaga natin ang ating mga kababayan, lalo na ng ating mga kabaro, ang pagtrabaho sa abroad, dapat sapat at tama at timely yung ating pagsuporta at pag-asiste sa kanila, that they will be working for also decent employers na masusunod yung mga labor laws at standards dito sa Pilipinas, doon sa host countries nila, at pandaigdigan, no, yung mga standards at conventions ng International Labor Organization. At kapag nalagay sa mapanganib o problematikong sitwasyon na kayang-kaya ng ating mga embahada at konsulado doon sa kanilang host countries na tulungan, respondehan at kapag kinakailangang i-rescue sila. And this is of special concern to my committee, RIA,
Yes.
the Senate Committee on Women, sa atin, mga kabaro nitong sina Julebi at iba pa, because also the feminization of labor migration is continuing to be a major feature of labor and foreign relations for us Filipinos.
Right. We still have lots to talk about, Senator, but we do need to take a break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Ria Tanwat Cotrillo. Our source today is Senator Risa Hontiveros. Senator, welcome back to the program. Still on the topic of our concerns for OFWs, particularly in Kuwait. Do we have enough laws to protect our OFWs, and how are our agencies able to monitor the implementation of these laws?
Perhaps, well, arguably, we have enough laws. Yung ating labor laws dito sa Pilipinas, yung ating mga laws protecting women and other vulnerable sectors, including those who go into the labor migration stream. And pagdating nga sa host countries, there are still the labor laws of those countries at yun na nga globally, the ILO standards. Pero the important equally and perhaps even more important question is your second one, Ria, na ipapatupad ba natin ang mga ito? And here, DOLE, the newly created Department of Migrant Workers and the Department of Foreign Affairs are the most responsible agencies to oversee the implementation of those laws. Pagdating naman sa mga host countries, then it becomes primarily the DFA and the DMW relating with their counterparts in those countries. And syempre, bilang member state tayo ng United Nations at sa ILO, we have also those conventions. So it's always a matter of overseeing the implementation. At kapag nagkakaroon tayo ng ganitong paulit-ulit ng mga problematikong at nakakadurog sa puso, no, ng mga kaso tulad dito kay Julia Nara, then justice must be sought. Hindi lang sa judicial systems doon sa host country at dito sa atin, pero yung justice in the sense of social justice, Ria, na let's continue to work on the root, the pushes and pulls for labor migration. Let's generate more decent jobs and livelihood here in the Philippines para mas maraming options for poverty alleviation, mas maraming options para sa pagpapaunlad, hindi lang ng buong bansa as a whole, no, but individual Filipino families and communities na karamihan ay pinagmumula ng ating mga labor migrants.
Senator, your colleague, Senator Raffy Tulfo, he reiterated his call for a total deployment ban in Kuwait because of this new case of Myla Bagbag, who was injured trying to escape her employers. Do you think it's about time? Will a deployment ban not compromise our OFWs who are currently in Kuwait?
well, in any way that they might be otherwise compromised, then kailangan nating mag-look out para dyan at gawa ng paraan na hindi mag-materialize yung ibang negative impacts. Pero death and injury and inhumane working conditions themselves are already negative impacts on our migrant workers kapag nilalabag ang mga karapatan nila in these ways. So I actually supported the call of Sen. Rafi for a consideration of that deployment ban, at least until these cases are resolved and until our government agencies can compel, can come to a firmer agreement with the government of Kuwait, not only to bring justice to the victims and the victim survivors so far, but to prevent recurrence. Kasi hindi ito ngayon lamang nangyari, Ria. This has been a pattern of abuse against our migrant workers. Kailangan madala sa hustisya yung mga perpetrators at mas siguruhin ng gobyerno ng Kuwait na hindi na ito mangyayari muli. So I really hope that the DMW will give serious thought to this temporary deployment ban. Lalo na napag-alaman po namin in the interpellation of Sen. Rafi's privileged speech that Kuwait is not yet a signatory to a particular, I fail to recall the full title now, Ria, but a particular convention, international convention governing the rights and welfare of migrant workers.
All right. Still on the topic of migrant workers, senators, but the last time we had you on the program, we were talking about Filipinos who were recruited to Cambodia and forced to work as crypto scammers. What is the update on them? Are those who needed help, are they back in the country?
Well, I read something in the news through you, the media, that there is a group of, if I'm not mistaken, 4 more OFWs who had been trafficked, who were forced into those crypto scamming operations, who had been rescued and were back in the country. Binavalidate pa po namin, but that would really, really be additional welcome, good news para po sa atin. But our own investigation in the Senate Committee on Women, Children, Family Relations, and Gender Equality will continue kasunod nung nabunyag naming human trafficking to Syria 2 years ago in the midst of our Pastilla scam investigation. Now, 2 years hence, ay nako, Ria, hindi pa rin nabuwag yung sindikato or mga sindikato sa loob ng Bureau of Immigrations who are facilitating not the protection of our overseas Filipino workers bilang dapat last line of defense ang BI sa mga potential trafficking victims, but now in what we first discovered, trafficking of OFWs to Myanmar, and then they're being forced into crypto scamming operations there. And then most recently, human trafficking and crypto scamming operations to Cambodia. So inuulit ko, kailangan talaga magsagawa ng matinding overhaul sa Bureau of Immigration. Salamat sa katapangan ng ating most recent witnesses, victim survivors themselves, Miles, Ron, and Brando. Nakakagulat, no? According to their testimonies, their sworn affidavits, kompleto yung mga dokumento ng mga kumpanya nila, no? Nakakalusot sa mga checks at authentication points that the BI said are set up and are supposedly operational, hanggang nabigyan nga sina Miles ng mga work visas. Of course, Ria, damay din dito na naman, no? As in Syria and as in Myanmar, damay dito sa Cambodia yung Facebook, Telegram, WhatsApp, LinkedIn, dating apps, at iba pang mga social media platforms at saka messaging sites.
Right.
And Ria, thank you really first of all for asking about our kababayan who are still trapped in the situation there. Meron pa rin tayong mga kababayan sa Cambodia, no? Aside from these 4 who hopefully most recently have been rescued, at sana lahat ng mga nandoon pa ay ma-rescue na at ma-repatriate.
Senator, do we
na
know
rin.
how many are still there and are in need of rescue?
Well, when we were investigating the human trafficking and crypto scamming in Myanmar, and with the inputs of more recent resource persons we've talked to, that Shwe Koko Special Economic Zone in Myanmar may not be the only one. There may be 3 more or up to 15 more or who knows how many more. Kaya hindi na unreasonable yung mga pagtansya that there may be hundreds of our kababayan still trapped there. Not to speak of other nationals of other countries also trafficked and forced into crypto scamming there. And if we look now at Cambodia, Ria, we have yet to come up even with an estimated number. But as one of the countries also in the Mekong River Delta region, malay natin, aabot din sa hundreds o thousands pa ba yung mga kababayan natin who are in need of rescue and repatriation back here, back home.
It is a huge problem and far from over. Senator, we'll be taking
Really
a short
huge.
break once again.
Yes, and it's a global problem now, they say.
That's right. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Stay tuned. Breaking news here on CNN Philippines. Inflation heats up further from 8.1% in December to 8.7% in January. That is according to a report from the Philippine Statistics Authority. January's inflation rate is well above the 7.5% to 8.3% forecast range of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas for the month. And still with us on the program, Senator Risa Hontiveros. Senator, can we get a quick reaction from you on this inflation rate that went from 8.1 to 8.7%? Is the government doing enough?
OMG talaga. Obviously, they're not doing enough. Even this 8.7% rate, even the president cannot debate with it kasi PSA na mismo ang nag-uulat. So, government really has to take the bull by the horns. The president has to, his economic management team has to, I hope he fully supports the Bangko Sentral in exercising its mandates and preserving the wherewithal to exercise those mandates para nga mapakontrol ang inflation because umaaray na talaga yung mga kababayan natin. Inflation means mas mataas ng preso ng pagkain at ng lahat-lahat. And with wages and salaries still not enough for a decent living for a majority of Filipino families, priority issue talaga ito, Ria, getting inflation under control.
Absolutely. But still so many topics to discuss with Senate Deputy Minority Leader Hontiveros. But we will have to say goodbye for now on television. But we will continue this discussion on our Facebook Live. So thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Ria Tanwat Cotrillo. You're watching CNN Philippines.